Hey guys, Joel here for another video about filmmaking and particularly feature filmmaking and no budget feature filmmaking. Filmmaking anyone can do. And today I specifically want to talk about that no budget aspect. What is a $0 movie? Because I've spoken about it many times. Most of my features cost next to nothing, and that's not $10,000 next to nothing, which is what a lot of people would say like is a micro budget. But it's literally my films have cost anywhere from $0 to $100, $200, and I want to talk about that because some people have a hard time conceptualizing budget, and I think a lot of people approach budget in a flawed way. I think people like to, some people like to be the devil's advocate when I say a movie's $0. It's like, well, your camera costs money, your tripod costs money. It's like the gas to get to a park you filmed at costs money. And I think this like super micromanaging of every dollar spent is so counterproductive. Firstly, the camera I've owned for like 2 years. It's like, it doesn't make sense to count that. I've owned it for 3 years actually, but it doesn't make sense to count that as the budget of every single film, because it's like I'm not spending the $1,000 every single time I use the camera. It's not like if you filmed in your family's house, it's instantly a $100,000 movie because their house cost $100,000. If it's not something you specifically bought for that movie, then I don't count it in the budget. It's like you own it, great. It's a free resource. It's something that you could use freely. And same goes for any equipment. Or you don't need equipment, and I'll get to that. But and the other level of that is like the gas thing. It's like, well, you drove here, you drove there, you ate. It's like, I was gonna eat anyways. It's like I didn't buy like a big meal because I was filming. It's like I was gonna eat. I had like a sandwich and I was gonna have a sandwich even if I didn't film. That's not budget. I drove somewhere. Yeah, if I wasn't filming, I'd go hang out with a friend. It's like, is that really budget? No, it's just like, oh, we have a cool park nearby. Let's go film there. Or, hey, let's go film at your house. Let's do this, And I just think the reason why I say this is, and it seems very nitpicky, and I think it's nitpicky on both behalves, the people who bring up these criticisms and me. But I say this because the second you start letting these expenses stack up in your head as like budget, as like part of this expense that a movie will inevitably cost, you start to discourage yourself from just making one. Because it's so easy to be like, oh God, like $50 can be a lot. I've been in positions where I have $100 in my bank account and $50 would be a lot. So if I looked at a movie like, okay, if I shoot this over the next 6 months, I will have to take the subway 10 times. Oh God, that's like $30. How am I gonna do that? But those things will come and go. They're not budget in the way that like you're expending money that you wouldn't spend otherwise. And I think that's important when I'm saying $0. It's always about, is this money that wouldn't be spent regardless if you're filming? Like what I count as budget is when I did my first movie, We Are Sasquatch. I did it all on VHS cameras, which I got off Craigslist for like $5 a pop, $10 a pop. I bought like, 10 of them. So I'm like, okay, there's like $50. And then my dad helped me build this cage for the end of the movie. And the wood and materials for that cage cost $100. So I'm like, okay, $150. And then there was some wigs I bought and some shirts I bought. And it wound up being like a $200 movie because I'm like, these are things I wouldn't have bought otherwise. I wouldn't have gone out of my way to buy these things otherwise. And the cameras I bought specifically for the movie because I wanted that VHS aesthetic. And I think I want to talk about aesthetics now because $0 movies, you're like, okay, I don't have a camera, so I instantly have to spend money. It's like, if you have a cell phone, you have a camera, and shooting on a cell phone is so valid and it works, and the fucking audio is great on the things. Like, I have friends, Doom Productions, they've done some movies on cell phones, and they've dubbed it on their cell phone too, I believe, or they used voice memos before they had a better microphone. And so great microphone, great visual quality on most cell phones nowadays. But if you don't want to do that, go on Craigslist. Some people give away VHS cameras. Go on like your small towns like Facebook giveaway page. People give away stuff. VHS is such a cool, forgiving, cohesive aesthetic that you could apply to a no-budget movie. Because, you know, if you're trying to shoot on a DSLR or something that is supposed to look a little nicer, and then you don't have the skill set, or light doesn't cooperate, or it gets dark when you're filming, it's gonna show, and it's gonna be like, oh, this professional thing it's keeping up, is facade is like falling apart. But if you have VHS, there's none of that. It's very forgiving. The audio is even forgiving, and audio is huge. Audio is such a big part of a movie, and that doesn't have to cost money either. But you, like I said, voice memos on a phone, a great solution for ADR dubbing. Dubbing is perfectly valid if you don't have the money or resources for a microphone. Even though I think you could get pretty simple lav mics that go right into your phone, and you could clip those on and use those as sort of a makeshift lav for like 20 bucks. But and I think a big reason why I continue to do no budget movies is that they show people that they can do it. And I think the Oscars night is one of the, if there's a piece of art, a collective group artwork that shows how accessible filmmaking is, I don't think there's anything more than the playlist of movies shot during the Oscars. There's literally 500 movies made by people on a whim that are all like 30 minutes, 40 minutes, these long, bulky movies that tell full stories, and they're funny, and I'm still watching them. I'm gonna do the awards soon, but I might have done them already if you see this video, now that I'm thinking. But it just shows that like you could do it with anything, and that's why I continue to make movies this way, because it's encouraging. It shows people that it's not only like a great way to get into filmmaking, it's a very valid way to keep making movies. Because, you know, the money's not gonna come. If you make a feature film, you're suddenly not gonna be making money. If you make 2 feature films, 3 feature films, you could still be in the negative because you bought a wig, you know, like I was. But at the end of the day, it's not about making money. So if you feel content and you feel happy and you feel fulfilled making films this way, the $0 way, like I do, and I show people that you can feel that way, you're not going to get discouraged when the traditional forms of success don't come. Money, fame, climb up the ladder. It's just fun. At the end of the day, it's fun. It's a challenge. It's like here's this thing that everyone tells you is expensive. And then you're like, okay, let's do it for free. You're like, how do I do it? How do I use my tool set, my skill set, my community, my friends? Like, we could all make something together. How do we do it right now? Like, if I were to film something today, what would I film? And taking that mindset into a film frees you from all these, like, I want to do a bigger movie, I want to do a sci-fi, I've had this script for a mob movie for years. It frees you from all that, and it just asks you, like, what would you express right now if you had to express something independent of finances, independent of your capabilities, independent of this? What would you express right now? And that's what, like, no budget gives you. It gives you this freedom to be like, forget all that noise, forget like all these what's the word, things you need to start making a movie, and just make one. And I at this point, like I've said it before, I could have easily spun my my audience. Like I could have like used my proof of concept films. I could have been like, hey, I have this audience, and I could have landed a movie deal. I'm sure I could have gotten like some sort of investor or financer to finance like $100,000 movie, $1 million movie. But I have no interest in doing that, because I am so in love with this form of filmmaking that isn't about finances. And that's the last thing. I think filmmaking has been bastardized in a lot of ways because it has been linked so much to expense. You know, you don't see people telling you can't make a painting because a painting costs $1 million every time you make one. You don't see people saying like a low budget painting is $1 million. You could like finger paint. You could paint with a Crayola paint on a piece of plain white paper. Your 5-year-old nephew could paint, you know? There's not this gatekeepery mentality in other mediums in the way there is in filmmaking, because it is tied to Hollywood and this crazy, elaborate Oscars. These people are above us, they're famous, they're rich, and we should all desire to be like them, and that's the dream. But in actuality, filmmaking is as valid a form of expression, as accessible a form of expression as any, you know. Nowadays, the tools to make a film are almost as regular and accessible as pen and paper, you know, to write a book, you know, and everyone could write a book, so everyone can make a movie, you know. And I think that accessibility is so new. It's newer and newer every day, and it's more accessible every day. I mean, just look, you could edit a movie on your phone at this point. Like, TikTok is teaching kids how to edit, you know. I think there's a lot to be said about TikTok that isn't great, like as far as attention spans, as far as this and that, but it's giving people these creative tools and begging them to be creative, begging them to do something with them. And it's driven by money and a greedy company perhaps, but these kids and people, like, I think they're gonna be so creative because these tools are in their hands and they're being shown, like, filmmaking from a young age. Like, me seeing YouTube, like, was way more encouraging than any Hollywood movie I ever saw. Me growing up with like 2005 YouTube into 2006, 2007 Smosh, you know, these people just making stuff for the hell of it. You know, that was way more encouraging than any freaking like Hollywood movie ever would have been. And I saw Forrest Gump and I'm like, I'd love to make a movie, but I didn't feel like I could make a movie. And then I see YouTube and I see people just doing it with their whatever camera they have laying around, and people being creative in new and exciting ways and telling new kinds of stories and creating new kinds of entertainment. And I was like, wow, this is something I could do. And I want to provide that to people. I think filmmaking is one of the greatest tools, as I've said on this channel, for empathy and understanding and sharing and expressing what we're going through. And if I could just show people a little bit that they can do it too, that's all I really want, because it has provided me a lot in my life. It has given me a lot of leeway to get stuff out of me that I'm bottling up. It's given me a lot of leeway to create when I feel like I'm wasting my time, and instead I could just be like, okay, let's do something now. And just look at the Oscars movies once again. Like, people in 3 hours, some of those are so amazing. Like, a lot of them are like great scrappy proofs of concepts kind of, and you could see where they'd go, but others are like, this is a full-fledged film made in 3 hours. And it's like, what if you give yourself 20 hours? What if you give yourself a week? And you just like make a film over a week, and you don't change how you make it. Just grab your phone, do this, do that, hang out with your friends, goof around, laugh, and you make something amazing. And you can make something amazing for nothing nowadays, I guess is the point. And you should, because it is much more freeing and much less limiting than the other ways. And I always tell people, it's like, even if you want to get into the industry, if you want to make a bigger movie someday, the best way to do it is proof of concept. If you make a really fucking good $0 movie and it gets people's attention, it's like, that's the best way to, you know, you're not going to climb that ladder quicker being a PA on sets and shaking hands and being an assistant camera operator. You know, the best way to climb that ladder is to fucking just make stuff yourself. And yeah, so whatever you want to do, you can do it. I hope this was a little clear. I love making movies this way, and I encourage everyone to give it a shot. So I love movies. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day.